Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fossil Friday Chats. Now, when you think about dinosaurs, do you wonder where they're from? Did you know that Nevada has dinosaurs? Well, we're going to learn all about it today with our presenter and our friend and paleontologist from the Nevada Science Center, Dr. Josh Bonde. I'm your host, Brittany Stoneberg from the Western Science Center.
And I'm your other host, Gabriel Santos from the Alf Museum of Paleontology.
Thank you again for joining us today, Josh. We're very excited to have you on the show today.
My pleasure.
Started to see some dinosaurs. Did dinosaurs have Vegas back then?
Not so much.
Oh man.
Aw. Yeah, when a lot of people think about where dinosaurs come from in the Western United States, they think about Montana, they think about Utah. So yeah, I'm not personally super familiar with the dinosaurs that have come out of Nevada. So I think this is going to be a really interesting talk, and it's going to be really interesting to hear about your own journey to being a paleontologist as well.
I'm sorry. My phone's
Was
going
that a dinosaur?
That's a dinosaur. See, we already have dinosaurs. Alrighty, well, let's introduce you guys to our presenter. Dr. Bonde is a born and raised Nevadan and proud member of the Te-Moak band of West Shoshone. He did his BS in biology at the University of Nevada, Reno, his MS in earth science at Montana State University, Bozeman, and his PhD back in Nevada. He is an advocate for science education across the state of Nevada, especially through the new Nevada Science Center, of which he is a co-founder. And I really want to congratulate you on the Nevada Science Center. It's been amazing to see your organization's growth through the past year. So good job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you guys. It's been a passion that me and my co-founder and partner Becky have been working on, and we're really proud of it.
Awesome. Oh, really quick. Shout out to Ninja Lawyer Steve, because they made the Viva Rock Vegas joke that I was trying to think of, and now I'm very sad that I didn't think of that. Dang it. Okay, anyway, I'm done.
Okay. Gosh. Alrighty. Well, Dr. Bonde, whenever you are ready, feel free to go ahead and teach us all about dinosaurs in Nevada.
All right,
Sorry, if anybody has any questions for Dr. Bonde, as always, go ahead and put them in the live chat. We will have a Q&A session after his presentation, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can. All right, now you're good.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you to the Western Science Center. Thank you to the Alf Museum for having me today. I'm excited to share what sort of research I've been up to for the past decade of my career, and also to kind of share my path for any other underrepresented folks that may be coming up through the ranks in the STEM fields. You're not alone, and hopefully I've got some maybe tidbits, some unsolicited advice that maybe will help you out along the way. So without further ado, believe it or not, Nevada has dinosaurs. So why don't you think, like when Brittany was saying at the get-go, why don't you think of Nevada when it comes to dinosaur history? Again, places like Montana, Utah, Texas, New Mexico, those are all places that kind of come to the front of the mind when you're talking about Western dinosaurs. The reason that Nevada doesn't have this rich dinosaur history like these other Western states is that through the geologic history of Nevada, there's been so many mountain building events, at least 4 major mountain building events through the age of dinosaurs across Nevada. So what happens during mountain building events, rocks get shoved up in the air, they get weathered away. And so our record of dinosaurs has actually been weathered away to other states to bury dinosaurs in other states like Utah. So our dinosaur age rocks are actually really slim pickings. So it's really been kind of, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment or something, going through what little scraps of the age of dinosaurs we have, trying to tease out what dinosaurs actually lived here. When people think of the age of dinosaurs or the Mesozoic, and they think of Nevada, if they're a dinosaur or a fossil kind of, I'll just say a fossil nerd, you think mostly of ichthyosaurs. And so Nevada's state fossil is actually the ichthyosaur Shonosaurus popularis, which was one of the largest marine reptiles to ever swim global oceans. So kind of making its way across the global seas of the Triassic, across Nevada when it was a shallow tropical seaway. So a little bit about my background. I grew up in a rural town, Fallon, Nevada, which is about an hour east of the town of Reno, up in northern Nevada. So my tribe is actually from northeastern part of the state in Elko County. And so I've got family scattered across the entire northern part of the state. So growing up, family vacation Okay, so yeah, so Nevada's history, it's geologically complex. So lots of uh, what Mesozoic rocks or age of dinosaur rocks that we would have had because of these ancient mountain building events got weathered away. And so our rocks from the age of dinosaurs are actually pretty slim pickings across the state. So when dinosaur nerds or fossil nerds like myself think about Nevada during the age of dinosaurs, they typically think of ichthyosaurs. So Nevada state fossil is the Shonosaurus popularis, which swimming across the shallow seas of Nevada during Triassic time. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in the small town of Fallon, which is about an hour east of Reno, up in northern Nevada. So my tribe is actually from northeastern Nevada, up in what's called Elko County. And so I've got aunts and uncles that are spread all across the northern part of Nevada. So family vacations typically entailed growing up, throwing the tent in the back of the car and driving across the state, camping at various campgrounds on our way to go visit aunts and uncles. And so one of the stops that we used to make growing up was at Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park. So in the upper right here, you can see this is a monument that is still at the park. It's a 50-foot long life-size recreation of a Shonosaur. So these are whale-sized ichthyosaurs that were cruising around central Nevada, eating ammonites and other Triassic critters in the shallow seas. And then in the lower right is a grainy old picture of me and my little brother in the fossil house that's still there today. And we were just recently there for leading a field trip, and it doesn't look all that different, except the exhibits have been upkept pretty well. So State Parks is doing a good job keeping at least the exhibits relevant. So looking at the Triassic of Nevada, up in northern and central Nevada, where we have ichthyosaurs cruising these shallow seaways, in the lower right, southern Nevada was right on the edge, kind of coastal during this period of time. So kind of marshy. This is when dinosaurs are first evolving, mammals are first evolving. There's some other weird crocodile-like things on the scene. And so we do have a record of that here in the state as well. So not just ichthyosaurs, but things actually running around, not just swimming around. So on the right, these are some tracks that were recently discovered over in Lake Mead National Recreation Area. So this part of Nevada, where Lake Mead is at today, 240 million years ago, was a vast tidal flat. And so you can see the individual scales on this little critter as it walked its way across low tide, either looking for food or walking from one place to another. Or this little critter here probably slipped in the mud a little bit, and you can actually see the scales on its wrist impressed within the tidal flat before high tide came back probably a couple hours later. So these are 240 million year old tracks, records from here in Nevada of animals living during the Mesozoic. Fast forward the clock about 10 million years so these ones are from what's called the Moenkopi Formation. So we fast forward the clock to the Chinle, and fossils are just now starting to come, or at least animal fossils are just now starting to come from the Chinle. So this is kind of a cool story. This is Harold Larson. He's a longtime avid rock art conservator here in southern Nevada. He found some really interesting looking rocks when he was on a hike out at Spring Mountain Ranch State Park. And so he sent me some pictures of these. So these are some of the original photographs. And I went out to verify what he had found. And it turns out he found these great big backbones of these giant amphibian-like animals called metoposaurs, which were cruising these waterways of the petrified forest. So the same rocks that compose Petrified Forest National Park extend as far west as southern Nevada. So we have the very western edge of the petrified forest. Here's some giant Araucaria logs that are preserved within Valley of Fire State Park. So this is kind of the transition from the Triassic to the Jurassic with an obligatory photo from, or picture from my friend Brian Eng, showing the transition from the Chinle or the Triassic of southern Nevada up into the Jurassic of southern Nevada. Our southern Nevada record is mostly terrestrial. So when you're talking about Triassic, Jurassic rocks in northern Nevada, those are mostly marine. But here down in the southern part of the state, we're talking about things running rather than swimming. So, all right, I promised dinosaurs. We can finally talk about some dinosaurs, or at least their tracks. So Nevada doesn't have all the really cool late Jurassic fauna that other Western states have. So we don't have the great big sauropods. We don't have allosaurs. We don't have stegosaurs, because rocks of that age, as I mentioned at the get-go, major mountain building events across the Triassic, the Jurassic, and especially the Cretaceous in our state So those rocks all got, if they were there to begin with, those fossils were there to begin with, got uplifted and weathered away and buried all the cool dinosaurs in Utah. So Utah, if you like your dinosaurs, you can thank Nevada for the sediment. But one cool aside about the Jurassic of dinosaur research is as a kid, my parents were really into bringing me to museums, me and my brother. And so one of my favorite museums growing up, because we had family in the East Bay, was going to the Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley, California, on the University of California, Berkeley campus. And I remember I was about the same age that my oldest daughter is now, so about 7 or 8 years old. And we went to the museum and they had this life-size animatronic dinosaur exhibit going. And I remember those things intrigued me. They scared the heck out of me. But at 8 years old, it left an impression that I was going to be a paleontologist. And so I knew from really early on what I at least wanted my career to be. So what I do now with my research, knowing that any 8-year-old out there could potentially be inspired to go into some sort of STEM field, is to try to captivate the public using dinosaurs. Most people aren't going to go out and become paleontologists. Some do, and that's awesome. Some get into dinosaurs and then realize the geology is cool, or the biology is cool, or maybe the physics or the chemistry is cool. And if that's the case, I've done my job. And so trying to use dinosaurs to captivate the public the same way I was by a museum exhibit when I was a kid. So it was actually a museum experience that my parents took me to that set me upon my career path. So this is a photograph taken by a friend, Brian Eng, here in the lower right, of me interpreting some dinosaur tracks in Valley of Fire State Park. You can see the little dinosaur tracks making their way across an ancient sand dune 180 million years ago in southern Nevada. Here's a little meat eater dinosaur track that was found also in Valley of Fire State Park. When I was teaching a field class out there, we found this track. And so this is part of when southern Nevada was part of the same, if you have ever been through southern Utah and the Navajo sandstone, these are the equivalents over here in Nevada. So here's a track panel where we have a bunch of little beagle-sized mammal-like reptiles that ran up a sand dune, again, 180 million years ago. I guess at this point, since we're talking about research in Valley of Fire State Park, I should do a land acknowledgement. The research that we've done in southern Nevada is attributable to lands that were historically occupied by the Southern Paiute or the Nuwu. So respect to the living elders and to the ancestors of that tribe here in southern Nevada. When I start talking about my research in northern Nevada, that's going to be lands that were historically occupied by my tribe, the Western Shoshone or the Nevadan, and again, respect to the living elders and the ancestors of my tribe. So how did I get stuck on my career path? I say stuck kind of just jokingly. After high school in Fallon, I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, and from there, I got a work study job at the campus museum, the campus mineral museum, the WM Keck Museum. I got to work in this beautiful historical mineral museum for 3 years. So this is the front of the building. This is the second oldest building on the University of Nevada campus, the Mackey School of Mines building. And it's modeled after the Cornell Mineral Museum back east. So there's an upper gallery and then looking down at the historical mineral cases. And because I was working at the museum, I got my chance to go on my very first official fossil dig, which was led by Sierra College professor Dick Hilton here in the upper right. And he's also the author of the Dinosaurs and Other Mesozoic Reptiles of California. Dick had a reputation from his students that I had known of being kind of ornery, but getting to know him, he actually became a dear friend and is still a friend to this day and a professional mentor. He was the one that finally told a kind of floundering undergrad to get his act together, get his grades straightened up, or else I was never going to get into grad school and pursue my career. And so it's thanks to mentors, and that's going to kind of be a recurring theme throughout this. Mentors help you get through your career, and it's really hard to be successful if you don't have people that help nurture your career along the way. In the lower right, here I am holding pieces of this mastodon we dug up outside of Gardnerville, Nevada. These are the legs here and the kneecap that I'm showing off to a group of thoroughly entertained middle school kids, it looks like. So another one of my mentors here, state paleontologist, Dr. Gene Ettore. He's also the state archaeologist. Again, to be successful in careers, it doesn't matter what your career path is, you need mentors. If you talk to any highly successful person, I bet they'll tell you that there was somebody that nurtured their career along the way. And this is especially true of underrepresented individuals within the sciences. You need to find people that are going to help nurture you through, because sometimes you might be the first person in your family that is getting into the STEM fields, might be the first person in your family even attending university. Find people that are going to nurture you and help you advance to your next level. A mentor is somebody who's going to teach, guide, and promote your career. There are people that call themselves mentors who are not. So if somebody's just trying to use your abilities or use your time, that's not a mentor. That might be a supervisor or something like that. So how do you find a mentor? It's actually pretty easy. Mentors will find you. People always want to attach themselves to success. So if you show initiative, a willingness to help yourself, to be engaged, then you're going to naturally attract people that want to support your success. Now, for underrepresented groups, especially Native Americans, a lot of us are inherently shy. And so even if with your family or with your friends, you might be the person that jokes and laughs the loudest. But if you're in a classroom, you might be the person in the back of the lecture hall, the person hiding in the back with your hat down low. It doesn't mean that person, for potential mentors, that doesn't mean that person's not engaged. And for those of you who are kind of coming up through the ranks, if that's you in the back of the lecture hall, you need to let this person know. If this is somebody that you want to work with, send them an email or try to get engaged after class or something like that. But you need to show that initiative. I know it might be awkward, but especially in our position, if you're not trying to push that, then you might potentially lose out on a potential mentor. So show a willingness to help yourself. Don't just sit there and have somebody hold your hand through that. That's not how it works. You need to be engaged in moving forward on your own as well. Help yourself, be engaged, show that initiative, and mentors will find you and help you. So after undergrad, I somehow got into graduate school. So I was accepted at Montana State University with my advisor, Dave Riccio. So here in the lower left, this is kind of Dave's permanent expression, befuddlement, I will call it. So Dave had this project, his Nevada project. So his dad used to live in Las Vegas, and he had gone hiking on a Christmas break, and he had found some turtle shells out in Valley of Fire State Park. And so I was his new Nevada student. He had a Nevada project. I was just grateful for that I'd even been accepted into graduate school. So who doesn't like turtles? So I decided, okay, that'll be my project, is Cretaceous turtles from Southern Nevada. Along the way, again, I was fortunate enough to meet more people that were happy to foster my career. Dr. Jim Schmidt, Drs. Frankie and Bob Jackson, Dr. Jack Horner, all helped foster and promote my career when I was up in Bozeman. So in December of 2004, Dave and I went on our first scouting trip into Valley of Fire State Park in Southern Nevada. We found Cretaceous turtles, lots of them. And then this is December time, which is actually field season in Southern Nevada because it's not 120 degrees. But a winter storm like we're just getting right now in the Southwest hit. And so it's raining cats and dogs while we're out there. And all these sandy washes that are out there in the middle of the desert, me and Dave, being geologists, like, that would look pretty cool, seeing water running through these dry washes. Let's go drive into the middle of a flash flood. So you hear all this information from people saying, don't drive into a flash flood. And here's the two geologists driving right into the middle of it. Fortunately, nothing bad happened. We did get stuck having to hide on high ground for a little bit until the flash flood passed, but no harm, no foul. It was dumb. But what ended up coming of that trip, that initial trip, is that my master's project turned from a simple turtle project into describing the first dinosaur Cretaceous fauna from the entire state of Nevada, describing the sedimentology and stratigraphy of an entire geologic formation. It was a lot, but I got through it. And here in the lower left is one of the cool finds. So this is a 98 million year old magnolia leaf that we found in a volcanic ash while prospecting out in Southern Nevada. So while this project ended up being far more complicated than I had originally anticipated, we're still doing research in Valley of Fire, and we're still finding more and more, adding to the plants and the animals and the story of the Mesozoic of Southern Nevada, at least the Cretaceous of Southern Nevada. So what have we found? So for all of the narrative, what have we actually found? We found pieces of garfish. So we find lots of their little scales all over the place. Lungfish. So this is actually a lungfish tooth right here. These are specialized teeth for crunching on little mollusks and things like that. We did find turtles, so in part it was still a turtle project. So we got 3 types of turtles. This is one piece of a turtle shell called Naomycales speciosa. It's a really long name, but it just refers to turtles that have these little bumps on their shells. Let me see if I can get my mouse up. So these little bumps define that species. Lots of crocodile teeth. We also get pieces of armored dinosaurs, iguanodonts, a new duck-billed dinosaur, and a new little plant eater that we're currently describing as well. Titanosaur sauropods, raptors, ancestors of tyrannosaurs, and descendants of allosaurs. So this is what the research in Southern Nevada looks like. There's not a lot of plants. There's not a lot of cover. So this is what the outcrop looks like. Here we are at a microsite, little croc tooth that we found. My faithful companion banjo making his way across the desert landscape as well when it's not too hot. And these are some sidewinder snake trails. So if you ever wondered what a snake track looks like, this is what it looks like in the sand. I learned quickly doing field work in Southern Nevada that there's not a lot of cover. So you put your water bottle on the lighter colored sediments so that the albedo keeps your water less hot than setting it on hot water or hot rocks. Some more field work. So here, teaching a field class overlooking the complex geology in Valley of Fire. Me and Becky looking at a duck-billed dinosaur that we discovered out in Valley of Fire. I made the students carry this thing out on a homemade stretcher, and a local brewery actually named one of their brews after our discovery. So if you're in downtown Henderson, Nevada, and you order this, you're actually supporting Nevada paleontology research. So some more of our finds. This is our little tyrannosaur tooth, our little titanosaur tooth, a thigh bone to a raptor dinosaur, and then these are the thigh bones, backbones, and toes of our new little plant eater that we're currently describing. And then here is a dental battery or a row of teeth of our new duck-billed dinosaur as well. And then this is an artist's rendering of an allosaurid that was discovered in southern Utah by Lindsay Zano and her collaborators, showing what kind of the ecosystem in Southern Nevada and thus probably Southern Nevada probably looked like during this period of time. All right, so after I was done with Montana State, I moved back to Nevada. I was always taught to give back, and so I wanted to get back to Nevada to use my newfound paleontology skills and give back to our state. And so I met another graduate student. His name is Peter Druschka, right here in the lower left. He's subsequently gone on into the energy industry, but he knew inside and out the entire geology of Northern Nevada. And he told me he had some cool fossils he needed to show me before he was done with his graduate studies. So take us back to the Cretaceous, this time in Northern Nevada. So here's Becky in front of one of our recent dinosaur discoveries up in Northern Nevada. This is kind of what the outcrop looks like up there. So here I am for scale on some of these great big river deposits in the Cortez Mountains outside of Eureka, Nevada. Here we are, Will Joseph and Becky working on a dinosaur, and then me and Becky working on a new dinosaur as well. So here we are documenting some crocodile prints. One thing I've found through my career is that you can't be successful on your own, so you need a team. And so here's our team out here helping. So here's Dr. Lauren Perry. She's currently a guest scientist at Tule Springs National Monument. Will Joseph, Natalie Renkes all came out. Here we are out trying to wait out a thunderstorm on a dinosaur dig site. You can see the water running across the landscape. In Nevada, it's one of those places where the weather changes in 5 minutes. So you just wait for the thunderstorm to pass and get back to work. And just kind of a weird story. When we were doing work out there digging up a dinosaur, we hiked over a hill, and surprise, surprise, there was a herd of llamas walking across the desert. Llamas aren't native to Nevada. So what this random herd of llamas was doing was kind of a surprise. And who knows, we haven't seen them since, so maybe somebody came out and got them. All right, so some of our Northern Nevada finds. A big old croc tooth, some Cretaceous stromatolites, which are fossilized pond scum, fossilized pine cone, and then some crocodile skin bones. This is a backbone to a sauropod dinosaur, a piece of the jawbone to a little plant-eating dinosaur, a big chunk of a turtle shell, pieces of an armored dinosaur, an iguanodon dinosaur here. We also have teeth of raptors, and we also have raptor eggshell. And so we know that there was kind of a wide, diverse ecosystem during the Cretaceous here in Northern Nevada. The difference between Southern Nevada dinosaurs and Northern Nevada dinosaurs, the Southern Nevada dinosaurs were living in an ecosystem like Utah during this period of time. The ones in Northern Nevada were actually living in the mountains. And so we were trying to tease out these little slivers of rock that got preserved from these higher altitudes. And then one final story, fast forward the clock to the very end of the Cretaceous. So we're right at the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary. And Peter brought us out to these frog sites. And so we find these fully articulated frogs, living snakes, if you missed that in the get-go, up in this pass that goes across the Egan Range outside of Ely, Nevada. I never met my maternal grandfather growing up because he passed away when my mom was a kid. But talking to my aunts, it turns out he was driving cattle back and forth through the same pass I've worked through in the last 10 years. It's kind of one of these cool connections to the land that I was able to go through an area that my grandfather had worked, probably used the same camps and saw the same tin dumps that he saw, except he was driving cattle and I'm out there digging up frogs. So after graduate school, I go from being the mentee to the mentor. If you're in this position, be sure you take it serious because you have somebody's career in your hands. So be selfless. You're not a parent, you're a role model. So try to nurture these young careers, especially if you see a underrepresented group and they're not being engaged or they're not being vocal in class. That doesn't mean they don't want to learn. That doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means that they're maybe inherently shy and it might take a little bit more to get them out of their shell. In giving back also, with my knowledge, I've sat on a number of nonprofit boards and continue to do so. And I've subsequently moved on from the academic world to the museum world and now onto the nonprofit world. So on my new path now, Becky and myself have started the Nevada Science Center. Our mission is leading community science education through impactful programs and diverse learning opportunities to effectively engage people of all ages and backgrounds, despite their economic circumstances or geographic location. This is a massive gap that we identified in Nevada and abroad as well. And so we're trying to bring science to everybody in the state and anybody that's interested in general, despite where you're at socioeconomically. So here's Becky setting up one of our virtual field trips. As you know, with the COVID, everybody's had to go digital. So we started out writing free STEM lesson plans on social media that teachers could download. And we've also been doing virtual field trips like lots of places have been doing. We've been doing ours in conjunction with Edutainment Learning and our friend Ralph Krauss. And through his network, we've reached tens of thousands of students and participants within the last year from around the globe. We've had people from Asia, Europe, South America, all 50 states, and all sorts of different school districts. So it's been really positive. It's really got our message out there and brought Nevada science out and about. Post-COVID, we're open to offer lab tours, in-class outreach, and we want to continue with our virtual programming as well. I'm the Director of Research of the Science Center. So we believe that being a part of the story makes you a better storyteller. It's always better to recount a story if you're actually there rather than telling somebody else's story. So some of the stories we're telling: Ice Age animals in Nevada, Pliocene bone beds. We have some fossilized maggots that are 15 million years old that we're getting ready to publish. Our frogs, our dinosaur work continues, and we're also working on some Paleozoic fish. We're actually going to go look for some Triassic tracks this afternoon. So on to the future, what the Nevada Science Center has in store. We want a major interpretive research center here in Southern Nevada. We want satellite science centers so to more effectively engage the public across Nevada. Our website here, and you can check out our social media platforms as well to see how you can help us out, or if you want to participate, or if you want us to engage your class. If you're an educator, we're more than happy to do that. Just reach out via our contact information on the website. And again, you can't be successful if you don't have help. And so none of this work would have been possible. None of these dinosaurs, none of my story would be possible if it wasn't help from the BLM Nevada, Dr. Brian Hockett in particular and his team, Nevada Division of State Parks, the Nevada State Museums. I have to give a shout out to my mentors, Dick Hilton, Dave Riccio, Jim Schmidt, Gina Torrey, Frankie Jackson, and Rich Rust. Friends and colleagues, Peter Druschka, Tom Madsen, Tina Campbell, George Braum, Katie Snell, Sean Long, Amy Henrique, Pat McShay, Rachel Dolbeer, Steve Carroll, Melissa and John Bell, Bob Jackson, Andrew Milner, and Brian Eng. And finally, my family, and most importantly, my family. So my partner in crime, Becky, my daughters, Juniper, Willow, and Magnolia, my stepkids, Alex, Kira, and Nola, and my fur baby, Banjo, and then my parents and my grandma as well. So with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions about, I know I covered a lot my story, Dinosaurs of Nevada. I'm happy to entertain any questions about any of it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bonde. That was great.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, and if anybody wants like direct links to information about the Nevada Science Center, we went ahead and put that in the chat. So if you are interested in seeing any of that, just go right ahead. You can click those links and go straight to the Nevada Science Center and find out more.
That was a really great story. I really love that you've really taken so much about, your passion for educating and mentoring those to create this whole new science center in Nevada. It's really cool and something that I would love to do one day. How much like work went into like this idea and then eventually creating it together?
So me and Becky sat down, and she used to be a director of education for another museum, and I was the director of research for that museum. And we sat down and just said, Nevada needs something Nevada specific. So we kind of sat down and just kind of on a napkin wrote a business plan. And then as things progressed, we made it's a terrifying decision. Let's do this on our own. And so we got an office and we just started doing it. There's doers and there's followers, and we just decided to do it.
That's so cool.
It's amazing.
Hopefully I'll be able to do that one day. A gamble, as you might say.
In Nevada.
I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh.
I'll stop. I promise. That was the last one.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's been amazing to see the Science Center's progress. We talked about it at conferences and stuff. You guys started about a year ago, correct?
About a year that we've been live, yeah. So it's been a wild ride. As we were talking about when we were doing setup, the pandemic timing hasn't been great, but it's also forced us to learn different platforms, be creative with outreach. And, in that regard, it hasn't been bad. And we feel like we've been able to contribute, at least reaching, like I said, tens of thousands of participants over the last year. We feel really proud about that.
Shit. All righty. Well, we have some great questions from our chat. So if anybody has questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We will get to as many as we are able to do. So let's go ahead and see. So this question is from Jam168. You showed a dinosaur track earlier in your talk. Are there dinosaur tracks that show a flock of them running together like birds, or are they always alone like in the picture that you showed?
There's a couple of track panels where we have mammal-like reptiles running together. There's one track panel out at Red Rock Canyon where there's actually a mammal-like reptile with a dinosaur track that's stepping into its tracks. You can't say one's chasing the other or not from a track, but it's kind of intriguing. But no, there's no multiple dinosaurs running across the surface that we have found so far.
Okay, let us see. Oh, here's another good question. This is from Jennifer. What kind of crocs are you finding?
One of the interesting things about when you start scratching the surface of a new area, I'm obviously dancing around this question. When you start,
okay. I understand.
When you start working on a new area, you can only work on so much stuff. And so there is a huge area. Just scratching the surface, there's lots of different research paths that can run. So hopefully somebody in the future will take our croc material and run with it. That won't hurt my feelings one bit. I don't
hear that
know.
Up and coming
That's the answer to the questions I don't know.
Oh. There's a lot of comments about how the flash flood story was terrifying, by the way.
It's just a part of the field experience for some people, right?
Yeah.
Right. Or being a dumb geologist, right?
I remember on one of my very first field experience, one of the dumb things that I did is I saw this dried mud pit, and I was like jumping from like a 1-foot ledge just to move to the next spot, and I didn't realize that it was wet, and so I jumped and I sunk about halfway deep, and I was just like, I don't know what to do, and I was like panicking, having a panic attack, and my dear friends at the museum just laughed and took pictures before they helped me, but I was like, okay. And eventually I got out.
But of course they needed pictures first, right?
Yeah.
They knew I was safe, it was fine.
See,
Field
we're all
work.
talking about flash flooding, and it just started pouring down here where I'm at. So that's fun. But I'm safe in my house. It's fine. Here's a question from my colleague Andrew McDonald. What are the ages of the dinosaur assemblages from southern and northern Nevada? So about what age range are they in?
So radiometric dates that we've gotten from southern Nevada rocks come back right around 98 million years old, with a pretty tight plus or minus on that. And then from northern Nevada, we just got some recent detrital zircon dates, and so they're ranging from about 107 to 96 million years old.
Ooh. Oh goodness! Apparently, your jokes are popular in the chat, Gabe. Good job.
Yes,
Oh,
I
no.
win.
No.
Don't encourage him.
It's
I
too
have
late.
to live with this. No, oh god. Here's one that I should have known was coming up. This is from Dr. Alton Dooley at the Western Science Center. Can you tell us more about the Nevada mastodon? There, I'm pointing in the right direction now. We always love hearing about mastodons here.
Mastodons. So after I left that museum, they didn't hire any bone nerds to replace me. So last I heard, that thing is still sitting in half sitting in a case, half sitting in a display case. If he's interested, the whole right forearm, both of the hind limbs, and the right manus are there.
Oh, hear that, Alton? I'm sure I'm going to get a text about that later. So
Sounds like it's ready. Someone's ready for a trip to Nevada when it's safe again.
Yay! I mean, I've been wanting to go to Nevada for a while because not for Vegas, but for ichthyosaurs. I love ichthyosaurs, as we can attest, and I've always wanted to go to that park, but I have not been yet.
It's a
So
great
I saw your
campground.
picture.
So
Let's see. Let's see. This one, oh, this is from our everybody's friend, Jim Kirkland. Do you have any dates on the Cretaceous ashes at Valiant Fire?
So the dates I just said for Andrew, those are actually argon dates from sanidines from volcanic ash. So yeah, those are 98.5 to 98.1 is the spread on those.
Alrighty. All right, I'm going to go a little bit quicker because there's a lot of good questions in here, and I want to make sure I hit as many as possible. This is from, I like this name, Ninja Lawyer Steve. Have you found any body fossils from the early Jurassic?
So far, there have been no body fossils from the early Jurassic, but when you're looking at Jurassic and Triassic exposures across Nevada, it's almost depressing when you see how much of it there is and how few people have ever looked at it. So that's not to say they're not there. There just haven't been that many eyes on it.
What I'm hearing a lot is scientists need to start paying attention in Nevada.
We got rocks.
I did like how you mentioned, like Utah, if you like your dinosaurs, thank Nevada sediment. Like, really? I love that. Okay. Okay. Bailey Jorgensen is asking, I think what she asks is the hardest question for all of our presenters. What is your favorite fossil animal, if you had to pick?
Ooh, that is a tough.
On the spot.
I know. I would say as a kid growing up, my favorite was, it had a different name at the time, but now it's Edmontosaurus. So I've always had a soft spot for duckbills, I guess. But now being a professional, probably what I appreciate most is I've had pet turtles for 30 years, so I'm going to have to go with turtles.
Ah,
Aww,
yes.
I love turtles.
My advisor, Dr. Jim Parham, when I was in grad school, studied turtles and would love that answer so much. I actually, not because I was like rebelling or whatever, but I just stayed as far away from turtles as I could at that point.
Missing out, Gabe. Turtles are adorable.
I don't mind them as pets.
This question is coming from Rob Carey. Have you had any finds in northwestern Nevada?
Northwestern Nevada, So my research doesn't just focus on dinosaurs. I work in the Cenozoic as well, so I've dug up lots of furry things. Most of the work in northwestern Nevada is Miocene, so 23 to 5 million year old stuff. So gomphotheres, mastodons, camels, horses. So we've got lots of those animals from northwestern Nevada. There are a couple of slivers of Cretaceous rocks outside of Reno that I have never taken a look at, and as far as I'm aware, no paleontologist has taken a look at. So that's not to say they're not there, but Nevada has rocks.
Why has there been so little research done on like these rocks here? There's, you hear all about the Badlands and parts of internationally where people go study, but in our own backyard, it seems like for a lot of people, why haven't there been a lot of studies done in these areas?
So that's actually a great question that I've pondered a lot myself. Is why is Nevada this big black hole when it comes to this type of research? The best I can figure is if you look at, as much as I hate to admit it, because Utah's kind of Nevada's rival, Utah's got a bunch of higher ed. Like there's universities all over the state. California's got universities all over the state. Nevada has 2 universities, one in north, one in the south. So any research that was historically done in Nevada was done by people coming out of Berkeley, and so they'd drive over to Nevada, haul the stuff back to Berkeley, and so that's what it was until surprisingly recently. So I think that's why this big black hole is this. There really hasn't been a lot of local folks working on this stuff.
Well, hopefully the Nevada Science Center can change that.
Yeah,
we're working on it.
Yeah, as I think both the Western Science Center and the Alf Museum can attest. Regional museums, like we really try to do the best for our communities. So it's really cool to see that Nevada has something like that now too.
Support your local museums.
Absolutely.
Yes, as always. That's what we're here for. Here's a good question from Dan Sturmer. Can you say a little more about the Paleozoic fish you're working on? There's some fish appreciation going on in this chat.
Uh-oh. So we're rewinding the clock. So there's rocks that are found outside of my grandfather's reservation of Duckwater, Nevada. So it's kind of smack dab geographically in the middle of the state. And it's called the Diamond Peak Formation. And so these are delta foresets, so these great big delta deposits. And we found part of a Ripidistan fish, which is kind of a freshwater relative of a coelacanth. And the gill cover on this thing was this big around, so bigger than a dinner plate. So we figured this must be at least a 12-foot long fish that was cruising around. So we're working with a researcher in Northern Arizona University. We're currently writing that one up.
That's a big fish.
That's
a big fish.
Oh God. Oh, well.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to shift, topics slightly a little bit. Earlier in your talk, you did something that you called a land acknowledgement. For those who might not understand what that is and what the importance of that is, could you explain that for our audience, please?
Right. It's just acknowledging work that we do or places that we're at. We're historically home to indigenous groups that, for reasons beyond their control, aren't allowed to call that home necessarily anymore. And so it's an acknowledgement to respect of those tribes that aren't necessarily there anymore.
Awesome. Well, thank you for explaining that. I know it's something that is being much more advocated for in paleontology for a lot more folks. So hopefully those watching will be able to understand now when they see what that means when they see one of those.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't explain it when I did it.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, it looks like that was our last question. So thank you, everybody. That was a really good mix of questions. And thank you again to Dr. Josh Bonde for really showing us not only dinosaurs in Nevada, which I think is pretty cool, but also I really liked the emphasis on mentoring and how to get a mentor, because I don't think that's always, when you're getting into paleontology, sometimes I don't think that's always spelled out, how to find mentorship and how important it is in one's career.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know neither of us would be here without our mentors, so it's just one of those things that you got to make sure people know on both ends. Like you said, you know, some people call themselves a mentor, but they aren't necessarily. So.
Right.
All right. Well, I think that does it for us today. Thank you again to our guests, and thank you so much to all of our audience for tuning in today. If you like this program and want to support programs like it, you can find links on how to do that in the description below. And as always, please make sure you like and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the world of paleontology. Thank you all, and we will see you next Friday.